So it's been a while since we've had a Lonzo Ball update. I mean, what really was there to update anyway? We knew that he wasn't coming back. Obviously, he's had his third surgery in the last 1.5 years, the last surgery being one that no player in NBA history has ever come back from. But we did get a pretty meaningful update from the Chicago Bulls in that they have officially applied for the disabled player exception, which will be worth $10.2 million, which the Bulls can use that salary as an exception for going over the cap. Think of it like the mid-level exception or the biannual exception that every team gets, but in this instance, the Bulls are deeming Lonzo out for the season, and thus they're able to get a portion of his salary to use another exception. Now, I'll be honest, when this first broke, first of all, I was at a kid's birthday party. Of course, something has to happen when I'm out, but when it broke, I actually wasn't sure if this was actually the career-ending exception or whether the Bulls actually were applying to have Lonzo Ball be medically retired, meaning they're calling it quits with him. They don't think he's coming back ever, and even if he somehow gets healthy, they wouldn't be able to bring him back on the final year of his deal next season. But thanks to Twitter and me asking for clarification, the disabled player exception is just for this season, which means Lonzo is still on the roster. They still have him under contract. It just means he cannot come back this season even if he got healthy. And by the Bulls using the disabled player exception, it gives them a little over half of his salary to use to sign someone else. Lonzo still gets his money. The contract is fully guaranteed. Nothing changes there, but it gives the Bulls more flexibility to sign additional free agents. That said, though, it doesn't mean that 10.2 of Lonzo's salary just magically comes off the books. His salary still counts towards the overall cap and luxury tax, meaning if the Bulls do choose to use the $10.2 million from that exception, it will put them over the luxury tax, which again, I think it goes without saying at this point, we know ownership isn't going to do that. So I think there is skepticism on whether the Bulls applying for the disabled player exception really changes anything, because if ownership is going to be unwilling to go into the tax, they're not going to be able to use it. That said, there is a world in which the Bulls hold on to it for a while. They see how the team looks, and if they're competitive throughout the season, meaning they're a top 4, top 6 team, like AK mentioned in his press conference, then maybe they would use it midway through the season, probably closer to the trade deadline, because another rule with the DPE is that you can actually trade or claim for a player who is in the final season of their contract. So there is that to consider here, in the sense that just because the Bulls have applied for it doesn't mean that they're going to actually use it. But if they do use this exception, and let's say they use the full 10.2 million, which again would mean they would go into the tax, but let's say in an alternate universe ownership was willing to do this, it does open up quite a few opportunities for the Bulls to sign some key role players at $10.2 million. I'm thinking of guys like Malik Beasley, who is still without a contract, a great shooter who would be a great fit on this roster. He might be looking for more than that, but it's a possibility given cap space and free agency is sort of drying up right now, and he might have to settle for less ultimately. And then there's also Christian Wood, who hasn't been signed yet. We've talked about him in terms of his size, rebounding, scoring. Maybe Grant Williams or PJ Washington, who are restricted free agents. It just opens up a lot in terms of the caliber of player you can bring in versus only having enough to sign guys to vet min deals because you're trying to stay under the tax, even though I think we all know that's likely what's going to happen. But let's dream for a bit. Maybe somehow ownership will give them the green light to go into the tax with this added exception. I'm not going to hold my breath though. As for Lonzo, I mean, I've said it before, but you have to feel for this guy. Yeah, I know he's still making millions, he's getting paid without playing, but this was the man's life since his childhood, and his dream is being stripped away from him due to injuries. Just so unfortunate. I don't care who you are, how much money you have. That has to be so hard to be prevented from doing something you love and you're passionate about. I really do hope he recovers from this and we can somehow see him next season. It's just not looking good at this point. Anyway, just wanted to share that update. As always, guys, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.